All right, good morning world. It's May 25th, 2022. It's approximately 8 o'clock in the morning. My name is Carlin, and I'm going to be a participant in the Sun Trip American Edition California event. There's probably a different name for that, but that's basically the important parts. I just wanted to do a quick introduction video and get everybody on board that hasn't been following the ride lately. Also, if you're curious what the Sun Trip is, I'll include some links at the end of the video and also in the description. All right, so my story: I left Texas and rode my bicycle here to California, about 1600 miles. I left quite early, knowing that I would probably have problems to deal with. But I think it was like something like 6 weeks on the road for 1500 miles. And that wasn't all riding miles. There was times where I was stopped waiting for parts or fixing things, or, broken down in Death Valley, that kind of thing. So I did leave early, knowing there would be issues. Also, I was doing more of an extended ride, so I was taking shorter days or less mile days. And also I'm going to be doing an extended ride after the Sun Trip, so I brought a lot of extra camping gear. The other part of the story was I started on an old rusty bike and a trailer I had built myself, and then the trailer and that bike have both been broken or worn out, so I've had to replace them on the road. Yeah, so that kind of just adds to the style points or something like that. It's like, yeah, whatever you started with isn't even what you're finishing with. So the new bike, this is a Giant. Picked it up in California. It's probably the most expensive bike I've ever owned, but it's not necessarily the most expensive bike on the road by any means. But it's a decent enough bike. Everything seems to work nice. It's got click shifting and stuff like that. For technical details on the electrics, at the moment I'm running a 250 watt Bafang, which is about the smallest motor you can commercially buy, and that motor got me 1600 miles through the desert and over some pretty good hills, including the Continental Divide at 7,000 feet, pulling an obscene amount of cargo. So it can be done. It's only a 36 volt motor too. This is the motor I left home on. I moved this from the old rusty bike onto this new bike. So it's a 26-inch wheel, and then the bike was made for 700s, so slightly smaller front wheel, but that gives you a little more torque, so it's not really a big problem necessarily. So that's that. The bike itself doesn't have the batteries on it, or the solar, or the charge controller. So I've got some wires running down here. That's the controller for the little motor. And normally the wires would run out through the trailer hitch, and there's the trailer over there. Okay. The trailer, the bike itself, I originally called it Carlin's Electric Mayhem Machine, which seemed to fit at the time. It's less technical and a little bit more white trash looking than you would hope. When we're doing the actual Sun Trip, a lot of this extra gear won't be on here. I'm actually pre-staged or camping in the backyard of another one of the participants, fairly close to where the Sun Trip is going to start. I got here about a week and a half early, knowing I was going to have to do some work anyway, so that worked out okay. So the trailer now is, if you look at just the trailer itself, that's the kind of trailer you'd put your kids in, and you could tow it behind a bike or push it for a jogging cart. Okay. That's not the trailer I left home with. Also, the wheels are probably a lot smaller than what you would ideally have, but they seem like they're working well, and they're holding up pretty good for what they are. This trailer I got from Walmart for $120, and it's been holding up pretty well. The solar panels, this one here I bought off of Amazon. It's a SunPower. This one is rated at 110 watts. And then the second panel I literally found on the side of the road, You can see some glue on it still. It probably blew off of somebody's motorhome, and it's rated at 100 watts. So they're basically voltage and wattage close enough that they're compatible. The framework for the trailer, PVC pipe from Home Depot. This wood I used as a reinforcement for the first panel when I built the original trailer. It needed a little more reinforcement at the time because of the way the trailer was built. This is 3/8 plywood. It's actually siding, a scrap left over from my house. Pretty rigid. You can see there's a chunk of wood missing here. That was from when the trailer blew over. The original trailer was a one-wheel trailer, so it did tend to tip over a little bit. So having the wood on the side protected the panel. That worked out pretty good. Then when I picked up the new trailer and the second panel, I improvised PVC pipe, a couple pieces of fairly thin wall rectangular tubing that I found on the side of the road again, and some hose clamps from the Home Depot, and was able to tie it all together, and also a whole lot of black parachute cord. That's worked out pretty well because the holes, the mounting holes on the solar panels are fairly small. You can get a 1/4 inch bolt through, but not much more. So I was able to just push the parachute cord through the holes, drill holes in the plastic pipe, tie it all together. It's got some flex to it, but it's working pretty well. I don't go much over 20 miles an hour if I can help it, so it seems like it all is working quite well. A little diagonal brace down to the bottom just to kind of keep it in position. And yeah, up until now I've been running way too much weight on the trailer, but for the race I'm going to leave a lot of the extra stuff here in the garage, and that should make things work pretty well. I've got some spare wheels that I'm not necessarily going to carry on the whole trip. There's going to be a van following us, so I'm going to keep the spares in case I need something, or I'll probably share some of the leftover wheels if anybody else needs one. This wheel came off of that bike when I put the electric on, that kind of thing. For safety, a typical, basically the safety triangle you'd have on a semi-truck. You always see those on the side of the road. People forget to pick them up when they get rescued, kind of thing. So I figured that would be a good thing to have. That's just zip tied on here. This is a blinking light that I rigged up. That's working pretty well. The solar panels are going through, this is the charge controller. This is a down converter that takes the battery voltage for the motor and gives me a 12 volts that I can run things like the blinking light. And then I've also got a cigarette lighter adapter here that runs a USB charger that I can charge all the phones and everything. I've also got another one of these up on the handlebars, so I can keep the phone working while I'm riding, and that all runs off of the solar system. The batteries, I'm not going to show you, but they're right down in here. After spending an unusual amount of time trying to make my own batteries, I had lithium iron phosphate 26650 cells that I was trying to spot weld together. It's a pretty common process. It just, between the rough road I live on and was testing on and the spot welders of questionable origin and quality, I kept having battery packs failing because the spot welds and the tabs were just tearing off the batteries. So at the very end, just before I hit the road, I picked up a bunch of tool batteries from Harbor Freight, and I made a battery pack for the bike based on electric tool batteries. And 1,600 miles later, it's working quite well. So yeah, the battery pack is set up at 40 volts, or approximately 41.5 is full charge, and that works really well with a 36 volt motor. So yeah, if I look back at the electric bike conversion parts that I didn't buy an all-in-one kit. I bought the wheel and the motor as surplus on eBay. Then I found a motor controller kit that was basically compatible with that, and then bought brake handles, throttle, pedal assist sensors, all of that kind of stuff, and just kind of rigged it all together to the point where it works. And then when I bought this bike, I just moved all of that parts onto this bike, and I'm hoping to do some upgrades, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it in time for the Sun trip, so I'm just going to run what I've got. But when I moved everything over, I just basically like electrical taped all of the parts onto the frame in a way that was, you know, field expedient and would work. And, you know, if I go back later and redo stuff, that'll make it look nicer. But, you know, the original trailer, I had spent most of a year building the trailer, going through a bunch of different versions that didn't work, finally found one that did work. A lot of scrap metal. I used some old bicycle parts, and coming through Death Valley, the hitch broke and I wasn't able to find somebody in a timely manner that had time to help weld it, and all of my welding stuff is back in Texas, so that wasn't practical. So on a whim, I just started looking at Walmart, and sure enough, they had this trailer. So I'm like, okay, you know, so it's kind of like, well, all of the stuff I put the most time into isn't here, and this is what I put together on the fly. So for somebody that's looking at doing an event like this, you may not have to spend as much time building something fancy as you'd think. You know, you could do better than this, but honestly, a lot of the parts are not super expensive. That's just something to think about. I'm using 6 20-volt batteries from Harbor Freight. And at the end, I've got batteries that I can use on my electric tool, so it's not just a bicycle battery, right? Probably one of the more unique parts is the solar charge controller, just because a 20-volt panel can't charge a 40-volt battery directly. You have to have more voltage than you have in the battery. So that charge controller that I pointed out down there, it's an up-converting charge controller that it really works well on electric bikes. So, and there isn't a lot of DIY electric bikes, and if you buy a commercially made electric bike, it's probably not going to be easy to convert to solar. So solar electric bikes is kind of a new thing, and it's not well represented yet in the marketplace, I guess would be the best way to say it. So it's left to a bunch of people like us to figure it out. And the neat thing about this Sun Trip event, and if you look at the Sun Trip on YouTube, and I'll put links to that, to their official website and YouTube channel, everybody has a unique solution. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do this, and so don't let somebody tell you you're doing it wrong, because I'm not sure that there is a right way. This isn't it, but there's a lot of different ways you could come up with the same kind of a solution. And you don't necessarily have to have the biggest or the fastest. My goal for this 5-day, 500-mile event is just to finish it and try to be keeping up day for day with everybody else. That might mean I leave earlier and I ride later, but we'll get there. There's going to be people that are going to be much faster, that are better prepared, and that's normal. So if I can finish without a whole bunch of mechanical things falling apart, great, you know. Yeah. Quick amendment: if anybody would like to help sponsor me on the trip, that would be much appreciated. Everything I've done so far has been more expensive and less convenient than I had hoped. So I've got Patreon, I've got PayPal, and I've also got YouTube membership sponsorship. Also, you can do super thanks. So if you look down below the video, there's the thumbs up and subscribe and all that other stuff. Look for the little heart icon. That gives you a way that you can throw me a quick tip. Much appreciated. I think my typical budget on this trip is going to be about $500 a month. I've had months that I've gone over. I mean, like when I had to replace the bicycle and the trailer, that obviously pushed me up and over the limit for that. I've had good months on sponsorship, and then I've had slow months, and so even with all the help, it's typically, you know, do I want to, well, like for instance, this camera is a GoPro. I had some money come in. I decided for the sake of doing the Sun trip itself, I would like to have a GoPro, just to get some of the footage while we're riding that's harder to get when I typically shoot on the phone. The rest of the trip I've just shot with my phone. And so I'm like, okay, I splurged a little bit and got the camera, and then I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was supposed to be food money. Oops. Yeah. Anyway, so life on the road is always more expensive than just, you know, staying at home, but you know, that's part of the adventure. The part I haven't talked about on this video so far is my other reason for doing this trip. The Sun trip was a small part of my reason for being on the road. When I was starting to plan this trip, what my purpose is to help raise awareness for the 22 veterans of the U.S. military that are coming home and committing suicide every day. And it's just a horrible problem. And while I don't necessarily have the solutions, my hope is that I can help remind people that this is happening, and together we can reach out and tell our veterans that they're still worth being alive, and see if we can maybe bring them back into normal life again, which isn't easy after being in some of the places that they've been to. I was an aircraft mechanic in Desert Storm, and so I know what it was like coming home. Now, I didn't do combat, and I didn't see the horrible things that these guys saw, but civilian life isn't the same after you've been in the military. And when I had a really rough time, what I realized was jumping on my bike and just going for a ride always made me feel better. And so when I was thinking about what to do about this 22 veterans situation, I thought, well, okay, you know, there's people that are doing, you know, 22 push-ups a day, or, you know, that kind of thing to help raise awareness. And I thought, well, to me, the bicycle may not be the biggest solution, but it's one of the simplest. So by riding my bike this year, so this is 2022, I'm riding 22 states for the 22 veterans. I started in Texas, and I'm now in California. That's the 7th state. And there'll be a map at the end of the video that will show where I'm going and kind of the route. 24 states is all of the states west of the Mississippi. And so my goal actually is to do all 24 of the states west. That'll give me a couple extra bonus states. So that's the idea. So if you're able to help me on the ride, I mean, just watching the videos helps because you're watching the ads and I get a small percentage of the ad revenue. But if you'd like to help me a little bit more, you know, if a few people chipped in $5 or $10, that makes a huge difference. If you can do more, all the better. I've had people that gave me, you know, hundreds of dollars some months, so much appreciated. So whatever you can, and if you know any veterans, check in on them and see how they're doing. You know, it's one of those things where they're taught to do amazing things, but they aren't taught to talk about their feelings. So just kind of, you know, get together with them, go out camping, take a bike ride. You know, you don't have to ride all across the country. And it doesn't have to be a fancy bike. I got 1,500 miles on an old rusty bike that somebody gave me, so odds are you probably have a bike you can get out and go for a ride on. So yeah, end of the day, you always feel better after a good bike ride. So all right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. And again, my name is Carlin, and if you look down in the video description, I'll put links to what we're doing. And I'll also put some screens up at the end of this video of the map and everything else, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now. And yeah, thanks to Alan for letting me camp out in his backyard. It's been pretty nice. As always, thanks for all your support, and I'll see you on the road. Bye for now.